Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please, let's go to the headlines.
Breaking tonight, a partial verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs trial. The jury tells the judge there are unpersuadable opinions when it comes to one of those charges. What this means for Combs and the rest of the charges the jury did reach a decision on. Record holiday week travel thrown into chaos. Deadly storms moving into the Northeast, causing thousands of flights to be canceled or delayed. Severe thunderstorm watch is underway from Washington, D.C. to Philadelphia to New York. Meteorologist Lee Goldberg is tracking it all. President Trump's massive spending bill barely clears the Senate. So what's next for the bill that includes cuts to Medicaid and $4 trillion in tax cuts?
At least justice starts with an interview of the families to ask them what justice is. And we didn't get that.
A shocking turn of events in the case of the Idaho College students' murder. Defendant Brian Koberger to plead guilty in a deal, stunning some of the families of the victims, how they're responding. Life after lockup, fresh out of federal prison, reality stars Todd and Julie Chrisley remain unapologetic, firing back at critics of their presidential pardon.
Convicted by a jury of our peers, were we? I didn't see multimillionaires in that jury box. I didn't see people that were in the film industry in that jury box. I saw people in a heavily Democratic county.
On USAID's last day in existence, a report warns of the harrowing domino effect losing the agency could have around the globe. Looking back at the impact of the famous televangelist Jimmy Swaggart, whose ministry was toppled by scandal.
From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is Prime News. Tonight, breaking news. The jury has reached a partial verdict in the Sean Diddy Combs case. We'll take you inside court. What Combs did when he learned the jury had already reached a verdict on 4 counts after just 2 days of deliberating. But the most complex and punitive charge, racketeering, the jury's still not unanimous. We're live. Travel nightmares, severe storms, crushing travel along the I-95 corridor, ground delays and ground stops at airports along the East Coast, thousands of delays nationwide, our inside look at the mad dash to keep millions traveling on time. Plus, beaches shut down across multiple states due to high levels of bacteria. What you need to know to stay safe this week. Alligator Alcatraz, President Trump on hand at the opening of a migrant detention center in the Florida Everglades. Greeted today by protesters. Our cameras capturing the alligators officials say will act as natural deterrents. President Trump's mega bill now goes to the House, the vice president casting the tie-breaking vote. The moment captured by our team, highlighting the GOP divide as the Trump and Musk feud erupts again. The president threatening Doge will look into Musk. And a fentanyl bust like you've never seen before. We'll show you the undercover sting to catch Chinese nationals selling the raw chemicals needed to produce the deadly drug. This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
And good evening. Duck season's coming early this year. The Robertson family is back with a new season of Duck Family Treasure. This time, the guys are trading in their duck calls for metal detectors as they travel the country in search of hidden historical artifacts and buried treasures.
Okay, well look, I found a bullet in the exact place, trajectory-wise, that I think a bullet would be.
That's a 45 ACP. They shot 40 at that car that day.
Well, I got one of them.
Absolutely.
Me finding this 45 caliber pistol bullet makes me think this is the real deal. I'm fairly convinced that this bullet could have been fired at Bonnie and Clyde.
I'm pretty sure we have found one of the culprits.
I'm going to tell you something. There's some things in these woods that have claws and teeth and a lot of stingers. I think I'm out of here.
Jace Robertson is the star of Duck Family Treasure on Fox Nation, and he joins us now. First of all, Jace, I just want to start out by saying how incredibly sorry we all are about the passing of your father, but I think I speak for a lot of Americans when I say thank you for sharing him with us. He was as wise as he was funny as he was God-fearing.
Absolutely, and the response was just overwhelming from the public. So we actually decided to have the funeral for him available for the public. So, which seemed a little weird. I didn't really want to speak, but my mom, when we said, "What would you like to do?" she was like, "Well, I want all my boys to speak," because she was concerned. Because my dad always told us, he said, "When I die, don't cry." He said, "You can dance and you can sing a song," because as believers in the Lord Jesus, he was fully prepared and was 100% convinced that I'm just going to a different place and I'll be back. So it was more of a celebration, but we do appreciate all the outreach.
Well, especially God bless your mom as well. I know that that is tough. So tell us about the new season.
We're excited. It's one of the most fun things that my dad used to say, hunting, duck hunting, and this is just another form of it. We're hunting treasure. He used to say, "Hey, this is the most fun you can have with your clothes on," which was intended to be funny. But, it's actually has its roots in the Bible. That's how I got into treasure hunting. There's so many
On this Tuesday, it is Canada's 158th birthday. The amped-up patriotism in the face of American annexation threats.
I have never been prouder to say, I am Canadian.
Calls to shut it down. The growing campaign to end the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is supposed to provide much-needed help. From beloved televangelist to the butt of jokes.
I have sinned against you.
The death of Jimmy Swaggart. And carrying forward a legacy.
It's been incredibly emotional.
The brother of Canadian hero Terry Fox on his cross-country fundraiser.
Global National reporting tonight, and Gaviola.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Canada Day celebrations are in full swing from coast to coast to coast. Canadians are wrapped in red and white, waving the maple leaf with pride. For many, this year's celebration feels more meaningful than ever. David Aiken reports from the national festivities in Ottawa.
Oh, Canada.
It is the 158th time Canadians have celebrated their country's birthday, but the first time with this Prime Minister.
What a crowd, what a capital, what a country!
And it's the first celebration in a newly uncertain time.
And I'm particularly proud that in a world that's fraught with division, that we under the maple leaf have considered our options, and we've decided not to pull apart and fight, but to come together and to build.
It was a national ceremony that touched on some of Canada's most enduring symbols and icons, the snowbirds, and the all-Canadian hero, Terry Fox.
Terry Fox remains a symbol of unshakable determination and hope.
The country's first Inuk Governor-General said Canada's peoples have always had that spirit.
Ayuinata is an Inuit word. It means you have perseverance in the face of adversity. It means never give up.
The Duke of Edinburgh.
For the first time since 2017, a member of the royal family joined the party, none other than the King's youngest brother.
There is only one sense that I have here, and today is truly a celebration of you, your home, and your land, strong and free.
Canada's culture minister says this Canada Day has taken on its own special meaning.
I think in the last few months we've seen Canadians from coast to coast to coast come together in a way we haven't in a very long time. And that's perhaps because of the threat that's coming from south of our border.
Prime Minister.
Not a place I want to go hiking anytime soon.
An immigration detention center opens in the middle of the Everglades.
Why would you want to come through Alligator Alcatraz if you could just go home on your own?
From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson. Maurice Dubois is off. Since President Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration started on his first day in office, ICE agents have made more than 100,000 arrests. The administration is running out of places to hold the detainees until they can be deported. CBS News has learned that some, originally from Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Caribbean, were recently moved to the U.S. naval base at Guantanamo Bay, Cuba, where terrorists are held. And today, a new detention center opened in Florida, in the middle of the Everglades, surrounded by every kind of swamp creature, which is why the president and the governor called it Alligator Alcatraz as they toured the facility. Manuel Bojorquez was there.
About 50 miles west of Miami, a remote airstrip deep in the Florida Everglades has been transformed into a temporary migrant detention center. That is the entrance to the facility right there. Just on the other side of the highway, though, you can see the type of land that surrounds the airstrip. These are wetlands, possibly teeming with alligators and pythons, something the administration views as an added security feature.
I'm going to teach them how to run away from an alligator, okay? If they escape prison. How to run away. Don't run in a straight line. Run like this.
This facility is opening up just as the Trump administration ramps up arrests across the country. There are now nearly 60,000 immigrants in federal detention, believed to be a record high. The need for more holding facilities was also an issue during...
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Israeli attacks on Gaza killed nearly 100 Palestinians Monday, including at least 39 people who died when an Israeli warplane bombed a seaside cafe in northern Gaza City. Among those killed were children celebrating a birthday party. The prominent visual artist Franz Al-Salmi and the photojournalist Ismail Abu Hattab is at least the 227th Palestinian journalist killed by Israeli attacks on Gaza since October 2023. Palestinian journalist Bayan Abu Sultan was injured in the assault, along with dozens of others. Separately, Israel attacked tents housing displaced people in the courtyard of the Al-Aqsa Hospital in central Gaza. Al Jazeera reports it's the 10th time Israeli forces have attacked the medical complex. This comes as Gaza's hunger crisis continues to deepen. In Khan Yunis, Dropsite News reports 29-year-old Ayub Sabeh Abu al-Hussein died from severe malnutrition caused by the Israeli blockade. The United Nations warns the territory has completely run out of infant formula, putting hundreds of babies at imminent risk of death. Already, at least 66 Palestinian children have died of acute malnutrition due to Israel's blockade, according to Gaza officials.
Good evening, I'm Amna Nawaz.
And I'm Jeff Bennett. On the NewsHour tonight, Vice President J.D. Vance breaks a tie in the U.S. Senate to pass the president's massive domestic policy bill. We examine what's in it and its chances of final passage in the House.
The United States withholds weapons it promised to Ukraine, another blow to the nation that's lost more territory to Russian forces in recent days.
And how the Trump administration is trying to change how U.S. history is taught in schools and in museums.
Our teachers in some areas are being told that they can't teach certain subject areas. Some teachers have left the classroom because they've thought, if I can't teach truth, then I'm not going to stay here.
Ulrich, one of the 200 France 24 correspondents around the world.
You're watching Daybreak on France 24, the headlines. The US says it is suspending some weapons deliveries to Ukraine, citing low stocks. The munitions and air defense systems were promised under the Biden administration. The halt in shipments comes as Ukraine faces some of the heaviest missile drone attacks in the 3-year war. Saying that Israel is ready to agree to a 60-day truce and calling on Hamas to join it, US President Donald Trump says a deal is on the table, but the conditions of the deal are not being made known. Meanwhile, the bombing of Gaza continues. More Palestinians killed there Tuesday. Still sweltering, the heatwave in Europe continues, with countries as far north as the Netherlands now on high alert. Millions of people exposed to high heat stress, with regions reporting record high temperatures.
Hello, everyone. It's on stage. US President President Donald Trump says that Israel has agreed terms for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza.
Plus, Keir Starmer's welfare bill passes, but only after a massive down. We'll look at what happens next.
Today, the 2nd of July, so Donald Trump asked Hamas to agree to a 60-day ceasefire with Israel, warning it will only get worse. Warnings of tax rises to come after the government is fought down over major parts of its welfare reform bill. The jury is told to keep trying after telling the judge they couldn't reach a verdict on the most serious charge in the Diddy trial. The Women's Euros, well, it kicks off today in Switzerland, but there are growing concerns about how the players will cope with the heat as Europe swelters. And India keep England guessing on their star bowler, Jasprit Bumrah, ahead of the second test, which begins at Edgbaston later. Good morning. US President Donald Trump agreed to conditions for a 60-day ceasefire in Gaza. He's due to meet with his...
Starts Tuesday, July 15 on ABC TV, ABC iView.
Today, and Victoria children after a Melbourne childcare worker is charged with more than 70 abuse offences.
Families must be able to trust that their children are safe when put in a care.
Significant flooding, flights cancelled, and thousands without power. East Coast low continues to lash the New South Wales coast. The 14th Dalai Lama announces the centuries-old institution of the Dalai Lama will continue, saying his successor will be born outside China. And millions of customers' personal data at risk after Qantas is hit by a cyber attack. Hello, welcome to ABC News. I'm Ros Childs. A warning: this story contains detailed alleged abuse. Police investigating a Melbourne childcare worker accused of child sex crimes have charged a second man with serious offences, including bestiality. Reporter Danny Tran talks us through the criminal investigation.
We know that yesterday police charged Joshua Dale Brown, a Melbourne childcare worker, accused of more than 70 offences against 8 children. Those ages ranged between 5 months old and 2 years old. And what we've learned today is that they have charged a second man. So we know that those charges have to do with bestiality, sex offences and child abuse material, which is what we've learned from the Melbourne Magistrates Court. It's unclear how the two men are linked. That is something that we're still trying to work out, but six charges have been laid. Now, this is all in the context of Mr. Brown being charged yesterday. It's extremely distressing news. Police have since revealed that Mr. Brown had a valid working with Children Check as a childcare worker when he allegedly offended against 8 children at the Creative Garden Early Learning Centre at Point Cook between April 2022 and January 2023. Now that working with Children Check was subsequently cancelled, and Mr. Brown now faces more than 70 charges, quite graphic charges, including sexual penetration of a child.
Danny, thank you.
This is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. I'm Paul Soap at this hour. The Quad navigating geopolitical tensions, the US, Japan, India, and Australia agreed to cooperate on critical minerals as part of efforts to counter China for impulsive deadly terror at Kashmir. President Donald Trump says the US could reach a trade deal with India, but casts doubt on any agreement with Japan before the July 9th deadline. He wants tariffs for Tokyo could go as high as 30 to 30%. And next million Qantas was hit in a cyber attack. Australia's largest airline investigating the full extent of the breach.
This is DW News, and these are our our top stories. The US Senate has passed a sweeping tax cut and spending bill supported by President Donald Trump. The bill is aimed at funding deportation and energy spending, cuts to health programs, could result in millions of people losing their health insurance. A New York jury has reached a partial verdict in the trial of Sean Combs, the music mogul better known as Diddy. Combs was arrested last September and charged with 2 counts of sex trafficking as well as 2 counts of transportation to engage in prostitution. But on the first and most serious count, racketeering conspiracy, the jury has yet to reach a verdict. Deliberations will continue Wednesday. And more than 165 international charities and non-government organizations have described a pattern of Israeli forces and armed gangs opening fire on people seeking aid from sites run by the group. This is DW News from Berlin. You can get lots more news on our website, dw.com.
DB, we love from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at dbnews.com/USA. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. db.com/USA. Here's News. Channel Britain's news channel.
Good morning. A humiliating climb down for the prime defense chaos.
Last night to the Labour rebels wiped out most of the £4.6 billion savings that Starmer had pledged to deliver.
With 49 Labour MPs defying their own party, a question this morning: has Starmer lost control?
Report proceeding to protect gender-critical academics from harassment.
Doge is the monster that might have to go back and eat Elon. Wouldn't that be terrible?
Donald Trump threatens settlement of government efficiency on Mars. The pair feud again over the president's budget plans.
In Scotland, in Edinburgh this morning, Royal Week underway. The King and Queen will be attending events in the city.
And just hit new heights this week. A heated debate is unfolded in workplaces across the country. Should you be allowed to wear shorts in the office during the hot weather?
And in sport this morning, Leeds falling as French Open champion Coco Gauff was knocked out of Wimbledon last night by the world number 42. So day 3, second round today. Highlights include Emma Raducanu taking on former Wimbledon champion Marketa Vondrousova. That's this afternoon. And 21-year-old world 766 Oliver Tarvet plays in champion Carlos Alcaraz.
Hello there, good morning. A cloudier day ahead for some with some heavy showers, but for others, dry, bright, plenty of sunshine and not feeling quite as warm. Stay tuned and I'll have all the details.
Wednesday morning, a very good morning from me
and this news.
Africa News, the news.
Israeli airstrikes on Monday killed at least 30 people at Al Makwa Cafe on the beach in Gaza City. Dozens were wounded, with many said to be in critical condition. A place crowded with children, women and families. Suddenly while they are sitting in God's protection, an F-16 warplane, not a drone or a boat missile, an F-16 of the place. The place shook and dozens of martyrs fell. It was a massacre. The people look like the remains of the martyrs. Madam Zima, director of Al-Shifa Hospital in central Gaza, said in a Facebook post that the facility received 39 dead and more than 100 wounded.
Trump's decision to drastically cut U.S. humanitarian aid is expected to have disastrous consequences, researchers warned. In a study published by the prestigious scientific journal The Lancet, they estimate that the collapse of U.S. funding for international aid could lead to more than 14 million additional deaths by 2030. According to their modeling, the 83% cut in U.S. funding, a figure announced by the government in early 2025, could lead to more than 14 million additional deaths by 2030, including more than 4.5 million children under the age of 5, or about 700,000 additional child deaths. Examining data from 130 countries, the international team of researchers estimated that USAID-funded programs programs prevented 91 million deaths in low and middle income countries. USAID supported program led to a 15% reduction in overall deaths with a 32% decline in loss of life among children under 5. Researchers found the biggest impact was seen in preventable diseases. HIV/AIDS mortality dropped by 74%, malaria by 53%, and neglected tropical diseases by 50% in countries mostly compared to the little or no USAID funding. Chadian opposition leader and former Prime Minister Suksay Masra, who has been in detention since mid-May, has ended his hunger strike after about a week of fasting, his lawyers announced on Monday. Masra, arrested on May 16, announced his hunger strike last Tuesday in a letter made public by his lawyers. He is being prosecuted for incitement to hatred and revolt, formation and complicity of armed gangs, complicity in murder, arson, and desecration of graves. On May 14, 14 people, mostly women and children, were killed in Mankao, Elgon Occidental region, southwest Chad, according to the Chadian justice system, which accuses Masra of provoked this massacre through one of his public statements. Suksay Masra, originally from the south of the country, enjoys widespread popularity among the predominantly Christian and southern populations who feel martyred by the predominant Muslim regime in Jamena. As UN Women celebrates its 50th anniversary, it warns that global progress on gender equality is at risk. A recent survey shows a 6% increase in concern over stalled progress, with nearly 1 in 4 countries facing a rollback on women's rights. The rise in gender-based violence, the widening digital divide, and the growing number of women in conflict zones, over 600 million, are major setbacks. To address these challenges, UN Women has launched a 15-point action plan calling for urgent steps to safeguard women's rights and prevent further regression. Key priorities include countering the backlash against women's rights, increasing peace building efforts, ensuring women's participation in peace talks, and addressing poverty and economic inequality.
Antos, a town nestled in western Paraguay, lit up with color, music, and ancestral pride on Monday, as friends gathered for the annual Cambaranga Festival, a unique celebration blending Catholic, indigenous, and wanted to end. Men have been doing it for a long time, which is why we women, besides having fun, maintain the tradition. The Cambaranga masks are cut wood, both artistic and symbolic, often portraying animals or exaggerated social stereotypes. The practice dates back to the 17th century, born from and the Africanist enslaved people during the Spanish colonial period. Festival goers invest weeks of preparation ahead of the celebration. Look for dried banana leaves, gather a lot, and make 1, 2, or 3 costumes for the festival. Playful and festivity at its core, Cambaranga continues to unite generations and a joyful expression of Paraguay's layered cultural history.